Sanji versus Rock Lee. How is this fight turning out? And I'll be honest, Rock Lee gets bodied and it's not even close. It's a pretty simple fight. Before Rock Lee even has a chance to go into his 8 gates, Sanji speed blitzes and takes the W. But for argument's sake, let's say Rock Lee does go into 8 gates and attacks Sanji. I still don't think he's going to win. And that's because Sanji has amazing observation hockey. So for the most part, he will just be evading Rock Lee's movements. But okay, let's say Rock Lee does get a couple good hits on Sanji. Sanji's durability is absolute insanity, and his natural recovery is no joke either. So he's not just tanking those hits, no, he's getting back up and kicking Rock Lee in the face. This is absolute destruction, threat level midnight. I agree with this take. Shonen MCs are a mix of hard work and talent. Luffy got the Nika fruit that gave him the ability to maximize his creativity. Sure, he made his devil fruit overpowered, but it was overpowered nonetheless. For Goku, it was Bardock's wish that granted his limitless potential. Naruto was a hard worker, but he had a 9-tailed fox demon, loads of chakra, and he was the child of prophecy. Ichigo, well, he kind of had a mix of everything, but he was still a hard worker nonetheless. And Deku ate All Might's hair. Yeah, I know how it sounds. But what Deku did was train to make his power his own. I do think there's one MC that leans more towards hard work than talent, and that's Asta. Asta doesn't have magic. He never thought he would have magic. He was essentially nothing in a magicless world. All he could do was train his body, and that's what made him strong. It was his mindset to never give up. That was his greatest talent. Yeah, if Luffy ever gets the Naruto treatment, I'll be kind of disappointed. Thankfully, Oda has already done future timeline versions of Luffy. When he's 40, he looks like Shanks, and when he's 60, he looks like Garp. Now, for the bad timeline, well, I'll still argue that he has a better haircut than Naruto. This is what we expected, and this is what we got. Now for Ichigo, I'm not sure why he's on this list. His haircut isn't even that bad. And Kubo did do a pretty solid job with the future versions of the Bleach cast. I mean, just look at Orihime. It's pretty amazing. But in Boruto, I have no idea what went wrong. Don't get me started on Gaara. It's an absolute abomination. And Rock Lee, why are your sleeves ripped off? Sasuke has a pretty decent character design, but even then, it's a massive downgrade from Shippuden. Which anime out of the big 3 has the best or most successful son? Well, if we're talking about my personal favorite, it's gotta be Luffy's son Asta from Black Clover. The Black Bulls give off the same bombastic energy the Straw Hats do, and Asta's mentality is very reminiscent of Luffy, and I love that. But if we're talking about the success of the anime itself, I think MHA makes a good argument. There's a lot of hype on this war arc. The first episode just came out yesterday, and let's just say Bunny Girl Mirako is making me reevaluate my life. But if we're talking about overall success, then it's JJK for sure. The manga sales speak for itself. The Shibuya incident arc is one of my favorite arcs in Shonen New Gen, and then you have S-tier female characters like Maki. Not to mention, the movie did numbers. So I guess from my personal preference, I would choose Black Clover, but overall, probably JJK. Anime characters that suffered more than Guts and Kaneki. Yes, this is a real list. First up, we got Bakugo. Yup, you heard me right. Bakugo. Yeah, I don't have any words for this either. Next up, we got Deku. Look, I'm not gonna say Deku didn't experience some sort of tragedy in his life, but to even compare it to losing your humanity and watching all your friends die, I mean, what? Next, we got Inosuke, the guy who lived his whole life on a mountain. I'm pretty sure his greatest suffering was taking that L to Tanjiro. And speaking of which, Tanjiro is on this list. Now again, he definitely suffered, and I feel for his trauma. I just don't think you can compare it to anything Guts has been through, or the Eclipse. And lastly, Goku. Now this is a hot take, but I actually agree. My guy Goku literally suffers from success. He takes too many W's. Who has the colder coat, the Admirals or the Captains? Now, if we're talking strictly based on drip, I gotta give it to the Captains. There's an element of swag they carry with them when they're wearing their jackets. but encompassing everything, this easily goes to the Admirals. In an SBS, a fan asked Oda how come the Admiral jackets never fall off in battle. And Oda simply said, it's because the coats say justice. It's symbolic. The jackets never fall off because for the Marines, their ideal of justice never fails. And as long as they maintain that ideal of justice in their hearts, it never will. Now this is quite significant if you compare it to someone like Aokiji, who no longer wears a jacket because he disregarded that ideal of justice. It's represented by something he said to Smoker. Even without Marine affiliation, there's many things one can accomplish. The big three of each era based solely on facts. I mean, factually, there's only one big three, but let's do this anyways. In the old era, there's Dragon Ball, Yu Yu Hakusho, and Sailor Moon. Now, for argument's sake, this is pretty accurate. I'm fine with this. But then we get into the actual big three, and it's an absolute mess. So we're just throwing off Bleach and One Piece completely now. The big three is derived from the golden age of Shonen Jump, where One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach were essentially carrying the magazine on its back. Dragon Ball Z's era ended long before that happened. As for Attack on Titan, it was published in a completely different magazine. So putting it on this list makes even less sense. Now for New Gen Shonen, there really isn't a big three, but we have the Dark Trinity, 3 shonen manga that bridge the gap between that and seinen. And those are Chainsaw Man, Jujutsu Kaisen, and Hell's Paradise. Creating the most overpowered One Piece character. For strength, I think it makes sense to have Whitebeard, the strongest man in the world, as our stat. For speed, it's a no-brainer. I'm taking Lucky Roo, the fastest man in One Piece. For durability, of course, I have to go with Kaido. This guy leaps from Sky Islands for his warm-up. For endurance, battle IQ, and Devil Fruit, this all goes to Luffy. Luffy's ability to bounce back into battle is absolutely amazing. He's a creative genius who knows how to use his Devil Fruit and his environment to his advantage. And accounting for his utilization of the Nika Fruit, it's the perfect storm. For skill and weapon, it has to go to Mihawk, no question. He's the strongest swordsman, and Yoru is an awesome sword. And for hockey, might as well go with the king of pirates himself, Roger. Now we're ready to run it up on the world government. Which of these villains had the best reason to be evil? For Doflamingo, his superiority was ingrained into his nature. It was a culmination of negative influences derived from his societal environment. Shigaraki's descendants to evil is very similar. It was the injustice within the hero society that made him a villain. While with Obito, it was the inequity within the ninja world that distorted his mindset. Rin's death was just the tipping point. Each of these are understandable to a certain degree, but the best reason for being evil goes to Zeref from Fairy Tail. After breaking a taboo, Zeref was cursed with a contradiction. Essentially, the greater his humanity, the kinder he is, everything around him dies. And the only way to overturn that chaos is to do the opposite. It's to become evil. The more evil he gets, the more he loses touch of his humanity. Life will persist. Dumb reasons for not liking One Piece characters. Akainu for doing his job. Yeah, he's an authoritarian extremist. He's not meant to be light or right. That's the whole point of his character. Green Bull for being a fraud. I didn't really understand this either. Homie pulled up on Wano, ready to solo everyone, but he left because fighting Shanks would be too much of a headache. He's disliked for making a smart decision. Ace is disliked for wasting people's sacrifices. And for anyone who says that, you really don't understand anything about Ace's character. Ace was like Whitebeard and Roger. He refuses to turn away from a fight when his family is disrespected. And Sanji for his gag. Is it too much sometimes? Sure. But Sanji is much more complex than his gag persona. He's empathetic and kind, chivalrous and strong-hearted. Sanji is just a multifaceted character. And those who drag him through the mud never made it to Whole Cake Island. Characters in the big three that were just done dirty. First up is Smoker. I have no clue what went wrong here. When he was introduced, he was such a badass, but then he barely got screen time, and when he did, he was constantly taking L's. I really hope he shows up in this next arc, and he better have a main character power up. From Naruto, we have Neji and Rock Lee. These two were some of my favorite characters in OG Naruto, but in Shippuden, we barely saw them. It came to the point that my love for Rock Lee was completely gone, and when Neji died, I didn't really feel that same impact. But hey, they still got more screen time than Tenten, a character that gets less screen time than Naruto's Frog Wallet. And for Bleach, this has to go to Chad. This guy had a main character power up and nothing was done with it. And honestly, we can apply this to the entire main cast of Bleach. They were all sidelined and it was unfortunate.